Mr. Faruk Kaymakçı is Turkey's Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. Sayın Bakanım.
Well, distinguished Minister.
Faruk Bey.
Merhaba, nasılsınız?
Sağ olun efendim. Buyurun, söz sizde efendim.
Thank you very much. I think that I have some minutes. Right? Shall I speak in Turkish or English? However you like. If the audience is actual simultaneous interpretation is available, so remote participants also have the option. Then I will speak in my native language. I think I have 10 minutes. Is there a time limitation? Yes, 10 minutes. The floor is yours. Then I will directly start with the headline. I will try to answer the headline question. In the previous panel, actually, you already discussed about the developments in the Eastern Mediterranean. Actually, there has always been some fluctuations in the relations between Turkey and EU, and for the last 2.5 years, most of those fluctuations were caused by the drilling works in the Eastern Mediterranean. The South Cyprus management and Greece opposed to some of our activities, and they made some agreements about the lines and borders in the Mediterranean. And Turkish-EU relations were tense, but for the last 2 years, it has more tenser. And the EU started to speak in a language more threatening to the candidate Turkey, but this didn't result in a concrete thing. Actually, unfortunately, from the very beginning, actually, EU speeches were based on some sanctions on the candidate countries. Actually, more equal and fair process couldn't be provided to Turkey. Therefore, the threatening language was used, and but ultimately we saw that that language didn't bring us to anywhere in the EU and Turkey relations. Some sanctions decrees were made by the EU. Unfortunately, our negotiations have come to a point of this recession, and due to some political decisions since December of 2016, the customs union negotiations has been ceased, and actually the European Commission actually wants to give authority to resume the negotiations to Turkey about these issues, but unfortunately it was prevented. And what does it mean? If we do not speak to each other, we will speak behind. This was the case for the last 2 years, and this at the same time affects the regional policies. And in fact, the political targets of the EU and Turkey are actually in the same direction. However, these two follow a different line from Syria to Libya to Caucasian to South Africa. Actually, Turkey and EU has parallel targets in these countries. Unfortunately, due to the political dialogue mechanisms between Turkey and EU were closed by the European Union unilaterally. Therefore, cooperation couldn't be achieved in these areas, including the defense, security, and in terms of NATO. Unfortunately, the required cooperation cannot be established, and on the other hand, the security agreements or prevention of and EU also prevented Turkey from joining the European Defense Agency, and there are also some problems. And another dimension of the relations between EU and Turkey is the fighting against terrorism, and we couldn't achieve the required cooperation as well. And in addition to Daesh, PKK, FETÖ, PYD PYD, for fighting against these terrorist organizations. Actually, EU must support Turkey in fighting against them. Unfortunately, for the last 2 years, this cooperation couldn't be achieved. Another area is the visa applications. Actually, Turkey is a country which is a party to the customs union. Actually, and despite it is encouraging free circulation among the countries, especially in Schengen region, uh, Turkey is the only candidate country to have free access to these countries, but unfortunately, free circulation is not provided to Turkey. Of course, Turkey will bear the obligations that it has to do in this process, but EU must be encouraging Turkey in this respect. Unfortunately, Turkey is a neighbor to some conflicting zones in the eastern and southeastern parts, and Turkey need to take these certain steps, certain measures against this, and at the same time. There are some commitments. There are some commitments not of fulfilled about the migration and about the issue of refugees, and therefore there were four commitments of EU. According to that, accepting the accepting the people from the Greek islands to EU, and 6 million euro resource to be allocated to Turkey, and at the same time cooperation with northern Syria and Turkey, and also starting a volunteer humanitarian aid. And only the first commitment was realized by EU. For the other three commitments, there are delays, and especially about cooperation with Turkey in North Syria, they did almost nothing. However, Turkey did all the things actually in terms of migrations. Turkey took the necessary precautions, and illegal cross-border passage was prevented, and the figures decreased, and illegal transition was prevented by Turkey through the European Union, and also Turkey also received back the people who passed to the European Union from the Greek island through the Greek islands, and but unfortunately, the other commitments were not realized by EU. And since 28th of February, Turkey suspended its commitments about migration. And another another commitment of the EU was participating in the humanitarian aid. Unfortunately, EU didn't realize these commitments, and they even seized the IPA funds. And however, Turkey continues and also continues to participate in the EU programs such as Erasmus and other programs. And you may remember that in December summit, EU made a decision in the near future in the agency Eastern Mediterranean, the tension could be lessened, and instead of using a threatening language, a positive language could be adopted by EU to Turkey. And it was a good approach for us. In order to make it successful, there are 5 parameters to be developed. The first parameter is, as you know, EU will make a decision towards a positive agenda in terms of EU and Turkey relations at the meeting, which will be held in April, and customs union update negotiations and new migration agreements and developments in free visa circulation and closer cooperation in terms of fighting against terrorism. And on these topics, new decisions will be made. And at the same time, as a candidate country, Turkey effective use of pre-accession aids for Turkey. If we can achieve this, all these will be a great gain for both of us. And these are the 5 steps to be taken. First of all, a mutual threatening language must be stopped between EU and Turkey. And until now, we have achieved this. Turkey and EU uh, are using a more constructive language right now, and there are more contacts. The leaders of the EU authorities, EU agencies, and our president and our Minister of Foreign Affairs are in contact with them, and in the near future at our level technical contacts have also been established, and these are positive things. A second parameter between Turkey and Greece relations, there has been more uh, more smooth contact. Actually, within weeks at the political level, Turkey and Greece will come together again. And at the same time, there are uh, um, some languages and there are some words uttered by Greece about the Mediterranean and Turkey's activities in Mediterranean, and there are unfortunately some languages in some bad language used by Greece, and nowadays. However, on the other hand, more smooth and even language is tried to be established between Greece and Turkey. And about the sharing of hydrocarbon resources, we hope that positive steps will be taken. Again, in April, upon the suggestion of Turkey, the two parties to guarantor countries and with the participation of UN, and an official meeting will be held, and there will be steps to be taken at this meeting about the share of the hydrocarbon resources with Greeks and Cyprus, Turks, and mutual agreement can be made and a common understanding can be established at the meeting. Secondly, for a solution in Cyprus, a new parameter set shall be determined, and in the framework of those parameters, a new solution can be put forward. And in this content, an agreement can be established between the parties, and Turkey is always supporting a solution and dialogue side between in the relations between these two countries. Until recently, Greece and the southern Cyprus Greek management avoided negotiations with Turkey and always addressed the issue to EU and Turkey. And we hope that they will no longer do it, and we can overcome the problems through mutual negotiations. And at the, about the meeting about titled East Mediterranean meeting. In the past, coal and steel committee was established and in the EU, and it was a great cooperation for the welfare of the societies, and at the same time a hydrocarbon committee can also be established which can create a synergy between Turkey and Greece, and it can be a robust foundation in terms of relation between Turkey and EU and also Greece. And another determining subject is for the 25-26 meeting is the relation between France and Turkey. About France, the subject about Libya, Syria, South Caucasia. There were some problems about these countries in terms of relations between Turkey and France. And however, our targets and goals about these countries are overlapping with France and Turkey, and the targets are in parallel. And I hope that the negotiations between France and Turkey will be resumed again. And if we can if we could speak about South Caucasia, Uraria, with EU, the problems would be solved in a more peaceful manner. But unfortunately, this couldn't be possible until now due to the attitude of some countries. Therefore, Turkey, in order to re-establish an amicable relation with EU and Greece, a more positive approach should be taken. And the existing policy doesn't solve the problems about Cyprus or the problems between Greece and Turkey, nor can it make it available to you, make it possible to use the great potential between EU and Turkey. As I've already said, in addition to the four parameters, there is a fifth parameter, which is about the reformation agenda of Turkey. There are some steps taken by it, and our president declared the action plan on the human rights, and it is an important just work. And with the Minister of Justice, we are planning to put into practice that action plan for 2021-2023. The harmonization of Turkish legislation with the EU legislation will be ensured through this action plan, and within weeks, this plan will be officially announced and enacted soon. And a reform action group has been established, has been formed, which will continue its actions. And the last 6 criteria about the free visa circulation, free visa, will be ensured, and which will provide robustness and consistency for the economy of Turkey. And when these steps are taken, the EU and Turkey relations will be improved. A new start will be ensured, which is my belief. Thank you very much for your attention and participation.
Ambassador Kaymakçı, with a very comprehensive analysis of Turkey's relations with the European Union. I think it's time to move the discussion on to see how both sides actually feel. Allow me to introduce this next session's moderator, Professor Gülgün Turan. She is a member of the honorary board of the International Cooperation Platform. She's joining us online. And just to make things a little easier, because as I was saying before, the nature of this session is quite unique in the sense that all of the participants are online. There could be a bit of a delay, so please allow me to introduce all of the panelists, and then I'll hand the floor over to Ms. Turan. Also online, Nacho Sanchez Amor is the European Parliament's Turkey rapporteur. Sergei Lagodinsky is the co-president of the EU-Turkey Joint Parliamentary Committee, also online. Nilgün Arısan Erac is the director of the Center for EU Studies over at TEPAF, Tepov is the Economic Policy Research Foundation, and the president of İKV, Ayhan Zeytinoğlu. İKV is the Economic Development Foundation. We have everybody. Ms. Gülturan, the floor is yours.
Yes. Well, I seem to see Mr. Amor as the main figure on screen, but the advantage of being online is that we don't have to wear a mask when we're talking to one another. So the panel that I'm going to moderate is entitled The Future of EU-Turkey Relations, Time for a New Beginning. It's a panel which takes place at a time of great uncertainty and great challenges, which give rise to pessimistic scenarios for the future. Although when I listened to our minister, Mr. Kaymakçı, I realized that he was more optimist than I'm going to be. I personally feel that we live in a different version of the TV series Games of Thrones. In Games of Thrones, you have 9 families, think of them as countries, waging war. Think of it as conflicts with one another to gain control of their region, of the world. While an unknown force, and you may think of it as the virus that we'll experience, threatens the existence of man. So what does the future reserve for us? This is what we will be discussing. To avoid any repetitiveness, I will be asking each panelist 2 questions, and if we have time, we'll give place for some questions and answers. So our first speaker is Mr. Amor from Spain, who is a member of the European Parliament. He knows very well the Osce region, which allowed him to be on electoral observation missions in Russia, Albania, Montenegro, Belarus, Tajikistan, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia. He's also been several times in Turkey. And as you can hear, he's well-traveled. His working languages are multiple. He speaks English, French, Portuguese, Italian, and Spanish. So, Mr. Amor, here is your first question. What kind of European Union is needed in a post-coronavirus Europe? Will a different EU be on your agenda?
Thank you, Gul. I hope you hear me well. Thank you for your kind presentation, and thank you for this invitation. Well, I think the most pungent pressure we have had in this period has to do with the pandemic. That the pandemic created some conditions that we have to meet, and one has been our policy on vaccination. That has been a great step ahead of the European Union, because the European Union is based on the competencies that the states decided to send to Brussels, and health in itself has not been till the moment a competence of the European Union, but because the enormous threat that the pandemic has represented in this former year, we started decisively a new path on health issues. And the vaccination strategy has been a common vaccination strategy that had functioned with some difficulties, but anybody could imagine what could have happened if we are dealing with the vaccine in a national basis, struggling for the vaccine, competing for prices, and so on. This is one step. And the other one has to do with the external foreign policy of the European Union. We have become more resilient for several issues. One is a political decision to reach a high level of what we call strategic autonomy. This has to do with the value change, but it has to do with politics. Our idea of strategic autonomy is not protectionist from the economic point of view, and it's not isolationist from the political point of view, but it's a way to reassure our presence, because we feel, as any country in the world, we feel the pressure of what happened in the pandemic, and we reassure us as a group of countries that want to have a more to reach a more higher level of strategic autonomy. On the other side, we have pass a very bad period in our relation with the United States, because the Trump administration dismissed from the very beginning relation with the European Union. The guy simply didn't understand what the European Union is and was, and we have been a little bit abandoned from our traditional Western ally. Now that creates a sense of it's the end of the orphan period. We have to be more assertive. We have to work more in our defense and security capacities. We have to struggle by ourselves in many things, and that creates and is going to create a more horizontal relation with the United States. And I think this is good. For that reason, I think the main outcome of this late period in the European Union has to do with this, what Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen called the geopolitical commission, with a more assertive approach to the international arena, and that I think the profile of Borrell, being a real politician from the very beginning of his career, is completely fits completely this task. And we are experiencing the end of our teenage period. What happened in Russia with Borrell and Mr. Lavrov is because we are not in the period of the child period of our diplomacy. We have become a real global actor, and that means you have to deal with difficulties. And I think what happened with Mr. Borrell and Mr. Lavrov, probably it could have not happened to the Mrs. Ashton, because there were other European Union. And I think we have to evaluate, it probably is not the moment, if this new mood of the European Union, this new stance in foreign policy in European Union, and what happened in Russia, is going to affect our relation with Turkey? Because there is a question in Brussels. Why are we being so vocal with Russia about Navalny, and why are not at least the member states that are not being as vocal as we are with Russia, with Turkey and Kavalas and the Mirtas and other cases? But this is my main conclusion: more assertive and geopolitical stance in foreign policy, and we are deepening our coordination, our integration in new policies as health policies. Thank you, Gul.
Well, it will be probably quite difficult under these conditions in your region to become what you call yourself a global actor when there is so much internal division within the EU itself. Well, let me get to my second question. Then, how can a constructive exchange in the overall relations between Turkey and the EU be possible at this particular time? Especially, what role can the European Parliament play? Can it play any?
Yeah, sure, Gul. But I had some difficulties in following Farouk Kaimachi's speech. At the very beginning, because I didn't come to the English channel, but I heard from him repeat the base of our relation. Sometimes the Council of the European Union, in the member states, forget that Turkey is a candidate country, and this is the fact. And we have to, we can avoid the fact that Turkey is a candidate country, and of course there are other parts of the relations. We have to deal in many other issues not directly related to the candidate status. But being a candidate country means you have to approach the European Union in any field of your policies. This is the rationale of the European Union. Of course, you are not obliged the same way as if you are a member, but being a candidate means a progressive approach into field of our policies. And now the problem is we have been diverging, not alignment but alienation in the last period. And for that reason we are talking very frequently about we have reached the lowest peak of our the lowest level of our relation in the past period, and we all do hope to be able to overcome the situation. My view is that in that very moment, in the present, the problem is the credibility, the sincerity the refreshed European bet coming from Turkey, because we heard a complete aggressive rhetoric about the European Union. We have been very aggressive statements about Greece and Cyprus. They are members of the European Union. We always heard about the European Union always in crisis, always divided. Well, this is our way to live. This is the way the European Union has been living for the last half a century. This is the normal way to act. The European Union, because we are a club of states. What I think, in my view, what we need from Turkey is not only a new, more moderate or friendly statement. We want facts. We want facts. I said recently in a more humorous way, if you want, please don't send us love letters. Send us facts. And facts mean decisions, political decisions. I welcome really the Human Rights Action Plan, but this is a plan. If this Human Rights Action Plan, after being presented, is accompanied by a statement insulting the LGBT movement, you have a problem of sincerity. You have a problem of coherence. If your prosecutors are acting the same way they acted before crashing the minor bubbles of criticism in the society, for example, what happened in Bogazici University, you have to decide. And this is very important. Allow me to explain this idea. You have to decide, Turkey has to decide if Turkey wants to be a mature democracy. This is on you. This is not about European incentives. This is not about accession process. This is not about the leverage. You have to decide if you want to become a mature democracy. And then parallelly, you want to be a member of the European Union, that's okay. But the question is not, I'm approaching the European Union and conducting reforms only in the case of I have some incentives. I'm from Spain. In Spain, we never evaluate any kind of external incentives. We decided to be a mature democracy. And then we went to the European Union. But this is a societal decision of Turkey. You have to decide if you want to be a mature democracy, disregarding what other external incentives you are receiving. And this is very important because this is about the political will of Turkey to become a democracy. And if this is reassured after the period, after the coup, after the province, in this horrible period after the coup, you have to be coherent. This is not about to pay to Brussels. This is about to order the prosecutors not to act in the way they are acting in the last period, linked to the
love letters. So you want
no love letter. Yeah, action, facts, and you have a perfect.
It's a pity you were not able to follow Faruk Kaymakçı, Ambassador Kaymakçı, because I've met him as an ambassador. It's a pity you were not able to hear in details. I mean, he did stipulate two things. He talked about our expectations and the parameters that needed to be implemented and realized for furthering relations with the EU. You know, in Turkey, people also doubt about the credibility of the EU itself, which puts rules, but then don't apply it. So, for example, you know, if you go back to years ago when Cyprus became a member, before having resolved its domestic and international problems, but it still became a member. Still, I do understand that the EU and the Commission, the Parliament, expect not to be faced with new rules or new laws, but want to see how these new rules and new laws are implemented and whether these new rules will further and help Turkey's democratic status within the Europe itself, in the world itself. So I will get back to you, but first let me ask speaker, Nilgün Arısan Eral, who is an expert of EU affairs, who has worked in various positions at the Ministry of State, at the State Planning Organization, and who is now the director of the EU Institute at the Economic Policy Research Foundation, which does interesting works. What she herself what her views are about the possible future shape of Turkey-EU relation. Does she agree with what Mr. Kaymakçı said? Does she agree also with what you, Mr. Amor, said? What needed to be done to further develop our relations with the EU itself? Ms. Arısan Eral, the floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting me to this event, to this panel. It's an honor for me to be here with such distinguished speakers. I will try to answer your question. In the last summit of the EU in December, High Representative of the EU, Mr. Josep Borrell, was given the task of preparing a report on the future relationship between EU and Turkey. I agree with Mr. Amor that Turkey is a candidate country, but unfortunately this is only on the paper for the time being. So I expect the future relationship, at least in the short term and medium term, between EU and Turkey to be a transactional relationship, hopefully not void of values. Because as we witnessed, as we have read the presidency conclusions of the last two summits of the EU, we have seen Turkey only under the foreign policy section of the presidency conclusions, and there was no reference to the backsliding in democracy, rule of law, and human rights in Turkey. Turkey was expected only to leave its unilateral foreign policy in the Eastern Mediterranean. In the past 2 decades, Turkey's status vis-a-vis EU has been transformed from a candidate country to a strategic partner, then to a partner, then to a neighbor, and very recently a kind of adversary. The backsliding in Turkey, in democracy in Turkey and rule of law, and the country's unilateral foreign policy played a role in this perception. But EU hasn't been impeccable either. I don't want to start a blame game, but we have to discuss these. EU unfortunately hasn't adhered to its own values during the accession negotiations with Turkey by accepting Cyprus as a member without a settlement in the island. Secondly, allowing some powerful EU politicians to exclude Turkey on a cultural and religious basis. Permitting unilateral blockage of some important negotiation chapters without an EU decision. And also, finally, by turning a blind eye on what is going on inside the country because of the realpolitik issues like the refugee deal of March 2016. Now, the EU leaders regard Turkey as a country to be contained. As the membership perspective has evaporated, they don't have a leverage on Turkey. I think they will, because of this, they put together, they offered a positive agenda to Turkey in the last two summits. I think the constituents of the transactional relationship to be offered to Turkey in Josep Borrell's report will be more or less the same as the constituents of this positive agenda. What are the constituents of this positive agenda? Modernization of customs union, people-to-people contacts. I think this is tacitly saying visa liberalization or visa facilitation, a new refugee deal. I think it was a big mistake on EU side not to initiate negotiations for the modernization of customs union, because this would test Turkey's willingness to reform, because I mean, if a modernized customs union negotiations could start, Turkey first have to have a rule of law, at least in the economic sphere. Turkey has to have autonomous agencies, autonomous institutions in the economy, and also Turkey has to have transparent state aid system and public procurement. So I hope sincerely we can see the initiation of negotiations for the modernization of the customs union. Regarding a new deal, refugee deal, I agree with Deputy Foreign Minister Faruk Kaymakçı that EU hasn't fulfilled all its commitments, and also the recent policy to be implemented by Frontex doesn't give us confidence about the adherence to values and principles by the EU in a new refugee deal. I don't think a removal of visas to Turkish citizens can be implemented soon, because Turkey hasn't fulfilled the conditions of it. And I strongly doubt one of the main conditions for visa liberalization can be fulfilled by Turkey. I refer to the amendment in the anti-terrorism law. The definition of terrorism should be amended, and freedom of speech should totally be alleviated from the definition of terrorism in Turkey. I'm a pessimist in this sense. I hope I'm wrong. In terms of short policy cooperation, so I can see, I wish I can see a negotiation for customs union modernization and a new refugee deal. But for the longer run, Turkey-EU relations need to be recalibrated on a coherent, sustainable, and realistic basis. It is clear that there is mutual dependence between the parties. Turkey depends on EU mainly for economic and commercial reasons, and on top of all, for international economic credibility. I think the recent change in the discourse of Turkey to the EU mainly depends on this economic dependence on the EU. On the other hand, EU depends on Turkey's cooperation in the refugee issue, as we witnessed in the past. And the recent events demonstrated the increasing need for the EU to cooperate with Turkey to ensure security and stability in its neighborhood. The parties should work towards developing holistic, comprehensive, and sustainable strategies toward each other, rather than reacting to conjunctural developments. I hope, without leaving the membership perspective, we can work efficiently on the cooperation areas through which we can re-establish the long-lost mutual trust between each other. And I hope, if the things can change, especially in the domestic political scene in Turkey, we will be supported by people like Mr. Lagodinsky and Mr. Sanchez-Amor as a candidate whose membership will be realized if and only Turkey fulfills the membership conditions. Thank you.
Nilgün, thank you. I'm not going to ask you your second question now. I'm going to pass to Sergei Lagodinsky, and I will ask him the question that will be related to what you were just talking to us about. Sergei is German. He's a lawyer. He's a member of the European Parliament representing the Greens. He's the chair of the European Parliament's delegation to Turkey, which explains his presence today. Mr. Lagodinsky, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So,
Happy to see you.
hi, Sergei. Let me ask you your second question. In an interview you participated recently, you had stated that normalizing EU-EP dialogue with Turkey depended on two fronts. You said the first front was rule of law and human rights, and the second point, if I remember correctly, was the geopolitical stand of the Turkish government. So if such a new beginning was possible, do you truly believe that Turkey would have a chance to become a full member of the European Union?
Well, I was first of all, thank you for inviting me. This is great to be in such a great round. Interesting ideas, and hello, Nacho. It's nice to see you. I wanted to once again come back to this this position of mine, and also mention that it is not about membership that we were talking about there. It's about normalization of a relationship. Let's make the first step first. The situation, at least the way it used to be a couple of months ago, was very critical. And it was not about saving the membership prospects. It was about saving a decent, normal relationship. That's why everyone was talking about normalization. And this is the first time that we will have to walk. And I must say that regarding the membership, I belong to those who do not want membership process being formally suspended. And this is something that is important to mention here. Also, Ms. Eralp mentioned it, I would say in a little bit too pessimistic terms. For a change, I'm more optimistic than others on the panel, because so far the membership process is frozen. It's not been officially suspended. It leaves the door open, not closed, to reinvigorate and to restart the process. The more we wait and the more problems we are being presented with, and I must say, at the moment and for the past years, the problems were presented from the other side of the EU border. We can be critical about the European Union's history with Turkey. But let's be honest, this is for historians. It's not for politicians. Politicians, we need to see what is going on now in order to solve the problems now. And the problems that we're facing now are not the problems that are made in the European Union, quite on the contrary. On the side of the European Union, the process can be restarted if we are not faced with arguments that are being used by some countries and some actors on the European Union, readily used, yes, happily used, but they are there. And these are the 2 points that I mentioned. The horrific situation on the front of rule of law. I must say, and I agree with Nacho, as you see from my first name, but also from my my role in the parliament, I also am responsible for our Green Party work on Russia. And I'm very outspoken regarding the situation there. But if we are honest, and if we are consequential, we have to be even-handed. And the situation that we're facing in Turkey, I don't want to start comparing, but the numbers of political prisoners is enormous. And unless we have solved that problem, and unless we have at least advanced on the issues of treating Kurdish minorities or part of population, I don't want to call it a minority. The party HDP is the third largest party in the parliament, and being treated as if it weren't there, as if the people are not even members of the parliament. And I don't want to refer to special cases, but I have been outspoken on that as well, also as a member of, as a colleague, member of another parliament. Unless we have advanced there will be no opportunity for us to advocate advancement of membership and even normalization of the situation. And I do agree with Ms. Eralp, and this is my position, which I think, and I want to emphasize again and again, it should not be solely about gas. We should not be the European Union of principles, and our main principle is how to equitably share gas. Our main principle is how to defend rule of law, how to support civil society, and yes, also how to have a partner, neighbor, or at some point a member who adheres to principles of international public law. And there, I think, is important also to see, and that's why I mentioned that, that in many cases, it is not just about gas. In many cases, like in Nagorno-Karabakh, Syria, Libya, it is also about, and you can see, you know, in Libya, there are also European actors whom I criticize. I must be open with you. But
Right.
how we work on that? What is the picture of an international actor, Turkey, that this government is projecting? And what kind of principles? Are these common principles? Are those coordinated principles with the European Union? Or is Turkey just another neighbor like Syria or Lebanon or something like this? And this, I don't want to go there. I want us to stay close members and candidate for accession. But for that, we have to be honest, it's not the European Union now who has to deliver at this point of history. At this point of history, unfortunately, for my Turkish friends, it's the Turkish side who hasn't delivered. And we
Totally agree. Totally agree. I would like to go back to Nilgün and ask the second question, which is somewhat related to what you were saying in the last part of your speech. Nilgün, why has tension in the Eastern Mediterranean increased since 2019? And what can we expect in the run-up to the European Council in March? I can't hear you.
Sorry, now you can hear me.
Yeah.
On the surface, if you look at the escalating tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean, it was the gas findings and competing claims regarding the exclusive economic zones. But as they say for football, gas was not all about gas in Eastern Mediterranean. There are numerous interlinked factors that have led to the escalation of tensions. Yes, despite the limited size of the findings, falling prices, and the emphasis put on renewables within the context of green confirmation, gas plays a role. But geopolitics, sovereignty claims, and of course, the unsettled Cyprus problem all contribute to the instability in the region. Also, having alienated its potential allies in the region, like Israel and Egypt, Turkey started to feel isolated in the region. The feeling of isolation also plays a role in the escalation of tensions in the region. And that ended up Turkey pursuing a unilateral and sometimes a militarist policy in the Eastern Mediterranean. Hopefully, the tension has calmed down recently. In the short run, and concerning the East Med crisis, I think the EU should acknowledge the fact that Turkey's, apart from the other objectives, one of the main targets in the region is to be a recognized player in East Med energy and not to feel surrounded by members of the East Med Gas Forum: Cyprus, Egypt, Greece, Israel, Italy, Jordan, and Palestine. Even when the exploratory talks between Greece and Turkey has started, has hopefully, fortunately started. A month ago, there was a meeting in Athens, Filia Forum, where Greece brought together Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and the main topic was Turkey, the policy towards Turkey. This would further alienate Turkey. And I find it very important, the convening of a multilateral conference in Eastern Mediterranean. This was first proposed by the EU, not by our president, but EU made it conditional that the scope, the timing, and the participants of this conference would need to be accepted by all participants. This would make it impossible to convene such a multilateral conference. I hope EU would take the initiative to realize this conference, to hear the arguments of both sides, because neither Greece nor Turkey is in a position to claim to have international law entirely on their side. Hence, the EU can only urge the countries to initiate negotiations. Hopefully, fortunately, the exploratory talks between Greece and Turkey started. I don't expect too much to come out from this exploratory talks, but hopefully the dialogue has started, and I hope the parties at least can agree to disagree. It is also important to recognize that a healthy resolution of the conflicts also depends on the progress towards resolution of the Cyprus issue. With all due respect to its internal solidarity principle, the EU needs to come up with constructive proposals rather than watching the dispute escalate and considering imposing sanctions on Turkey, because unfortunately, in this specific case especially, sanctions are counterproductive. What do I expect in the short term? Hopefully, the rhetoric in Turkey has changed. I think this depends on the economic situation in Turkey and to the Biden administration in the US. I hope this rhetoric will continue. At least dialogue with Greece has started. And recently, we see Turkey's rapprochement efforts towards other countries in the region, like Egypt. I hope Turkey can be accepted, at least as an observer, to the East Med Gas Forum, so that its argument, its claim to be isolated in the region would be alleviated. If this continues, this dialogue and de-escalation in the region continues, I don't expect any sanctions for Turkey in the upcoming summit, and I hope we can initiate at least cooperation with EU and with Greece in the summit at the end of this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilgün. Our last speaker is Mr. Ayhan Zeytinoğlu, who is a well-known businessman, one of the founder of the Chamber of Industry of Kocaeli, which is affiliated with various economic NGOs in Turkey. He's presently the chairman of the Economic Development Foundation. He's of a major NGO dealing with EU affairs and having very interesting publications. When you see, Mr. Zeytinoğlu, when you see what is happening and what is being said today in this panel, how can an NGO like yours contribute to improve the dialogue between EU institutions and member country Turkey?
Thank you, Gül Hanım. NGOs are very important. They play a very important role in building trust and mutual understanding. They work to build bridges and create public awareness about the EU and Turkey-EU relations. One of the most important aspects of Turkey's EU accession process is civil society dialogue. NGOs fulfill a very important function in this respect. They convey the value of the EU through exchanges, awareness and raising and dialogue. They also convey the opinion of public and the groups they represent. For example, NGOs representing business sector convey the point of view of industrialists, product producers and traders. They act as a bridge and also inform the groups they represent about the effects of Turkey-EU relations. Turkey's EU process does not only have a political or economic impact, but also social impact is very important. It necessitates political and economic reforms in the field of democracy, human rights, and rule of law. NGOs may also act as watchdogs and monitor these reforms and how they impact on social conditions. They may also create a civil diplomacy and convey the points of view of the citizens of decision makers. My NGO, which is called IKV, is a well-known and accepted partner in Europe, in many countries in Europe. But as you mentioned, I am also a businessman, chairing one of the largest industrial sectors in Turkey. And when we are talking with our partners in Europe, one of the major difficulties in Turkish side is that, for instance, visa liberalization issue is a critical and psychological aspect of our discussions. Our goods can travel freely, but we have to travel by visa process, which is actually quite costly. Mr. Nacho has been with me last year in Turkey together, and I have already mentioned to him, and I don't mind telling Mr. Sergey that the cost is over 100 million euros per year for visa. Now, we have difficulty understanding such countries like, I don't mind telling, Ukraine and Georgia has visa-free travel, and we don't. And it is very difficult for me as a president of Chamber of Industry to explain my members why we cannot. It is critical issues, but when we are talking with our partners, business partners, we do not have that much difficulties. It is politics and politicians. And as Sergey said, it is a political decision. Of course, it's not something we know. I'm not an expert on that, but I think, for instance, Nilgün has raised the question of Cyprus being accepted as a member before solving the problems. Is something the politicians or decision makers should do something to change. And my suggestion is, as I said, I'm not a politician. My suggestion is EU should consider decision-making process of unanimity on decisions such as big decisions affecting all over Europe. This is my minor suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayhan Bey. Let me get back to Sergey. You know, when you were talking about the geopolitical stand of Turkey, what is it that you implied? Sergey, are you on?
Yes. I'm sorry. I think that Turkey has to decide what kind of player Turkey wants to be in international relations. And I understand what Mr. Eralp said, and I think it is important to see this. Turkish government and Turkish country wants, or Turkish government in this case, wants to be treated with dignity and wants to be taken seriously, also as a regional player. And the question is, does this mean that it wants to be a regional player that plays on both sides in all different directions and picks and chooses and is transactional, as was already mentioned in a different context? Is it kind of a new Iran, which is just closer to the European Union as an international player with regional aspirations? And also, by the way, we should not forget that also with some soft power / hybrid technique when it is, for example, about Balkans and its influence there, when it is about religious communities in Germany. We should not forget about that. This is also a power play and influence. And the question is, yes, I mean, do they want to be just another player like Russia, Iran, and others? Because this is probably the category in which it will end up. Or it wants to be a Western-oriented, European Union-oriented, important player, and where the capital, the political capital, the power capital comes also from a normative perspective and also from the orientation vis-a-vis Europe. So being I hate the word bridge because usually
everybody crosses it.
Usually everyone steps on it. So yeah. I also, when people say, Sergey is a bridge to, no, please don't. But it is true that the geopolitical position of Turkey is important and is an important capital, but it's not neutral. I mean,
it can't be neutral, Sergey. Look at what France is doing in Mali, in other places of Africa. Look at the EU foreign policy activities. It can't be neutral. When you talk about politics, politics can't be neutral. It's you act according to what is to your advantage. And it is to the advantage of Turkey when it's talking about maritime rights to be involved in Libya and to do agreements with the Libyan official government if necessary. It doesn't imply that it has become a new Iran or a new Russia. It is a player that wants to have equal rights like others.
Of course.
Nilgün, I think I saw you raise your hand. What is it?
Can I just briefly react to that?
I was just approving what you were saying.
Okay, all right.
The question is, yes. Do we want to live in a world where it is about power interests? Do we want to live in realpolitik world, or do we live in an institutional relations, international relations world? And we should not forget about this. Of course, everyone has interests, but there are institutions and there are agreements, and they are there to channel and to bundle the interests in order to talk about long-term interests and not just their short-term interests. And this is, I think, what is being forgotten in Ankara, that this country has a long-term interest, and this long-term interest lies not...
I agree. But you see, when the EU bend the rules, and if you're the first one to bend the rules, then other countries that are not within a regional organization will say, well, they bend the rules, why shouldn't we do the same? I was the president of an NGO in Turkey called the European Movement Turkey. We were members of the European Movement International, we still are members of the European Movement International. Since 1987, we were members of this institution. And for years, we were never elected to their board. Finally, 3 years ago, we were elected to their boards because we believe in the same principles that promote this institution. So I do understand what you want to say, but when I put my political hat, I'm not a politician, but if I were a politician, how would I feel about what is happening in the world and the isolation we are being pushed into? Yes, Nilgün, your turn. So what do you think will happen at the European Council in March?
If this current environment, calm environment in the Eastern Mediterranean continues, and if the dialogue between Greece and Turkey continues, most probably a second round of exploratory talks will take place soon in Athens. I think the positive agenda will be again on the table for Turkey. There won't be any sanctions to be proposed against Turkey. And hopefully the cooperation on certain issues will begin between the parties. I think the two concrete cooperation areas will be the customs union. The first one will be a new statement, a new cooperation on refugees, for sure. That's what both parties want. I sincerely think a modernization of customs union negotiations will start. As I mentioned before, this will be a concrete test for Turkey's willingness to reform, at least in the economic sphere. Also, I agree that I've already said that visa liberalization is impossible without the necessary conditions to be fulfilled. But as Ayhan Bey mentioned, visa facilitation is very important. I hope visa facilitation can take place for students, especially for Erasmus students. And for business, Turkish economy is very much integrated into European economy. I think visa facilitation can also start for businessmen who are doing business with EU. These are the I expect conditional upon the stable environment in Eastern Mediterranean. I hope there will be a positive agenda in the new summit, and I wish EU leaders will pay more attention to the democracy, human rights, and rule of law in Turkey, like the members of the European Parliament.
Yes,
That's
Mr.
all I
Amor.
want to say.
Thank you, Nilgün. Mr. Amor, what do you think will be the outcome of the European Council meeting in March? Mr. Amor, can you hear me?
Thank you. Yeah, can you hear me? Wolf, can you hear me?
Something is wrong. I think I'm having difficulty hearing you. You're frozen. Yes. Well, I'll skip Amor, but because I can't hear him. Let me ask Mr. Ayhan Bey. Siz ne?
We are basically working for Turkey's accession to European Union since 1965. So we have not been very successful. But we are, as I said, we are not politicians. We are just trying to convince businessmen to work towards European Union accession, and it is important for us to tell them what to do, what to expect when chapters are opening and what costs are related. And meantime, we visit countries, chairing countries in Europe twice during their 6 months period and explain their NGOs Turkish issues that needs to be answered. So those are the basic things, but we have publications, we travel around Turkey and tell businessmen how we will be affected by enlarging the custom union and visa liberalization and etc. So in these days, we are now working on Green Deal, and also we are mentioning how important it is to actually reach or modernize the custom union, because as is, it's not working properly. We have some difficulties sending our goods to European Union. We are facing some trucks, traveling quotas, and some additional costs. But also new STAs, free trade agreements that European Union is signing with other countries are affecting us really badly. But in Turkey, we are really trying to work hard. And currently, last 24 years, 25 years, the trade deficit between Turkey and European Union has reached almost $300 billion. But we still, as representatives of the business of Turkey, we are still working on accession. And we believe by enlarging the custom union in agriculture, in services and public procurement, we believe there is going to be some more trade. And actually for Turkey, we are going to receive some more investment from our European friends. So it is very important to be a part of European Union, and of course, and Green Deal. We would like to be a part of European Union. So to answer your question, I hope on the 25th and 26th, we will have some positive agenda working toward custom union modernization. And also our president is going to announce new economic reforms on Friday in Istanbul. So we are hoping that those reforms will affect European decision makers' decisions. And I also agree with Sergey that we should, and Mr. Amor, we should not just write our intentions, but also fulfill our promises.
Thank you, Ayhan Bey. I see that Nilgün has raised her hand, but I think we're also linked to Mr. Amor, to whom we have asked what...
It's okay. Okay, thank you. It's okay
Question.
now. Well, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I would like to react in some things we heard about the custom unions and what kind of conditionality has to be adhered to the custom union. The Parliament is going to insist that the custom union has to include some democratic conditionality. Why? Because the accession process is not functional for that. Because if we have a functional accession process driving the reform, probably we are dealing with the custom union in a different way. But this idea that if we open the discussion of custom union, could be, again, an incentive to Turkey to reform the public tender, to reform the... Well, that means, are you staying in the same level of legal uncertainty if you are not in a discussion with the European Union, of the custom union? Did you notice what happened with Volkswagen? Volkswagen decided not to invest in Turkey because the problem of legal certainty is a way to address the issue of the rule of law. And it's Volkswagen, it's not Sergey and Sanchez Amor and this full politician of Europe asking impossible things to Turkey. That means, do you want to be reliable on the economic side? You have to reform your laws independently of the custom union debate, because this is on your interest. This is not about, but for that reason, I challenge only this idea of incentive. Let's open the custom union, because in that way, Turkey is reforming the public tender law. Guys, reform the public tender law, because you have received damages with your legal framework now. Another thing, foreign policy. What has been the final outcome of the new Turkey foreign policy? Complete isolation. Complete isolation. Do you remember when Mr. Davutoglu talked about the policy, Turkey's policy has zero problem with neighbors? Zero problem with neighbors? Please have a check on your relation with any of your neighbors. This is the outcome of your foreign policy that could be used in the domestic public arena to gain some nationalistic stance and to offer things. But you are isolated. You are in dire straits in economy. You have to decide. You are going towards Europe in everything, as Sergey said, in the way you act in the foreign policy, in the way you deal with the human rights and rule of law issues in your country or not. This is your decision. You're a sovereign country, but you have to decide what is the real direction of your state. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Nilgün, your turn. Open your mic.
I'll just say two things. First, as a follow-up to what Mr. Zeytinoğlu said regarding green transformation. Very recently, yesterday, three main think tanks and civil society groups in Turkey, the Economic Development Foundation, İKV, my institution, TEPAV, Turkish Economic Policy Research Foundation, and Istanbul Policy Center of Sabancı University, we made a written call to the government, inviting it to start the reforms to adapt Turkey to the green transformation process. Otherwise, even the existing customs union would be void. But it was sad to see that EU has opened its green transformation process to Western Balkans, but not to Turkey. Turkey has a customs union relation with the EU. It's sad to see that. Secondly, I think Mr. Sanchez Amor misunderstood me. Of course, conditionalities conditions can be imposed for a modernized customs union, but not to initiate, but the conditions shouldn't be imposed on the initiation of negotiations. The negotiations should be imposed. The conditions can be imposed anytime. During the negotiations, at the end, anyway, European Parliament has to ratify the modernized customs union. Conditions can be imposed then. But if you don't initiate the negotiations, then you can strengthen the hand of the current administration. It was the EU who proposed a modernized customs union. Look at them. They don't even initiate the negotiations for it. I'm not against conditions, but I'm against the timing of the conditions. Thank you.
Yes, well, you know, we have, I think, used all our time. The only thing I can say at this point to finish, because we won't have time for questions and answers. The next panel is ready, I think, and they're expecting us to end this panel. Let me just say two little phrases. Let me say that in difficult times, in dire times, it's difficult to force governments to cooperate regionally. Regional leadership, on the other hand, is hard to attain, especially so if credibility of said organization is questionable. So where will this lead us? I really don't know. I'm pessimistic. Yes, thank you all. Thank you, Sergey. Thank you, Amor. Thank you, Ayhan Bey. Thank you, Nilgün. And maybe we'll see you next year and we'll be able to talk more positively then. Bye to all.
Thank you, Nilgün. Thank you, Ayhan. All the best for you all. Thank
you.
you, Sergey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And a very big thank you to all of you from Istanbul, from the Bosphorus Summit. Thank you very much, Professor Turan. Thank you.